The ratings were phenomenal because of Caitlyn Clark. She didn't want to take credit for all of those ratings, but we all realize that Caitlyn Clark single-handedly is responsible for the WNBA mattering.
Caitlyn Clark just did something no WNBA player has ever done. She contributed a staggering 26.5% of league-wide activity.
Caitlyn Clark has done is grown the WNBA exponentially. She did in 5 weeks what would have taken 5 years. And as it pertains to draft viewership, she did in 5 days what would have taken 5 years.
That means over a quarter of the WNBA's viewership, ticket sales, and merchandise revenue is because of one player. Meanwhile, veteran stars like A'ja Wilson are in disbelief, struggling to accept that a rookie has already outshined them.
All of this success is due to the presence of one player in the league, and that is a generational talent named Caitlyn Clark. She's the reason the WNBA just won the lottery.
The numbers don't lie. Clark is breaking records, selling out arenas, and making the WNBA more relevant than it has ever been. But instead of celebrating her, some players and media figures are trying to downplay her achievements. Today, we're breaking down how Caitlyn Clark is carrying the WNBA, why her impact is rewriting history, and how the jealousy from players like A'ja Wilson exposes everything wrong with the league's mindset.
There is a lot of appropriate attention on Caitlyn Clark and the Indiana Fever, and we found out that the Fever Storm game from over the weekend drew 2.2 million viewers, which is massive. The WNBA has 18 games this season where they've had more than 1 million viewers average, and 16 of those 18 have featured Caitlyn Clark. So you cannot deny the connectivity of Caitlyn Clark playing basketball and people wanting to watch. If she's playing, they will come, they will watch the game.
The WNBA has never seen a player like Caitlyn Clark. Before she arrived, the league struggled to gain mainstream attention, and attendance at games was often disappointing. But the moment Clark stepped onto the court, everything changed. In just one season, she has skyrocketed WNBA ratings, transformed the Indiana Fever into the most-watched team, and driven a 500% increase in league-wide merchandise sales.
By calculations, she's responsible for 26.5% of the league-wide activity. The first time a WNBA team has drawn 300,000 fans in a season.
But we should have been giving her the credit. We saw the ratings. We saw the merchandise sales. We saw the attendance. But y'all want to make it about something else.
No other player, past or present, has ever had this kind of impact. Her presence alone turned the Indiana Fever into the most in-demand team in the league. The Fever now leads in attendance, with over 177,000 fans per game, more than any other team in WNBA history. And it's not just live games. Her televised matchups draw 1.2 million viewers on average, a 199% increase over non-Clark games.
The event usually averages about 14 total viewers, but this year the WNBA draft won record ratings and nearly doubled its normal viewership. That added audience is largely thanks to Caitlyn Clark, who went #1 overall to something called the Indiana Fever.
Think about that. Every time Caitlyn Clark steps on the court, nearly triple the normal audience tunes in. That kind of dominance is unheard of in the WNBA, and it doesn't stop there.
What Caitlyn Clark does is kind of simple, really. She shows up at games, she signs autographs, she talks to little girls wearing jerseys, she smiles to the crowd, and then here's the most important thing. She competes like a maniac. I mean like a maniac.
Caitlyn Clark's jersey is the top-selling WNBA jersey of all time, with sales surging past those of any other player in the league. Merchandise featuring her name has driven a 500% increase in WNBA sales, proving that she's not just a great player, she's the face of women's basketball.
The regular season attendance, they average more than 17,000 fans.
The WNBA tried to capitalize on her popularity and crammed a lot of games in over a short amount of time, playing against the best teams in the WNBA.
Even more shocking, the economic impact of her presence in Indianapolis alone has been estimated at $36 million in just one season. She's not just benefiting the league, she's boosting entire cities. With all this success, you'd think the WNBA would fully embrace Clark as their biggest star.
Is box office. She is a star.
But the attention she brought to the sport, hopefully going to have a residual effect for years to come.
But instead of recognizing her for the phenomenon she is, some within the league are trying to diminish her accomplishments. And leading the charge? Players like Aja Wilson, who can't seem to accept that a rookie is now the most important player in the WNBA. Aja Wilson and other WNBA veterans are watching as Caitlyn Clark completely reshapes the league. And instead of supporting her, they're trying to discredit her.
But they don't want it to grow if it's certain people at the face. And there is still this undertone of jealousy that for some reason I cannot get around calling it anything else but that, because I don't know what else it could be. I thought it was going to get better this season, but it hasn't. There are still people who seemingly, to me, feel like they just don't want Caitlyn to be a part of it.
From the moment Clark entered the league, there has been tension. Some players have gone out of their way to rough her up on the court, while others have taken shots at her in interviews and social media posts. Why? Because they know she's the biggest thing to ever happen to the WNBA, and they can't stand it.
Caitlyn Clark is just such a class act. She was incredible, breaking all types of records, and that's something she was certainly proud of. We saw lots of smiles on the court.
Caitlyn is the face right now, and that's also good. Like, she's selling out gyms, of course. Like, why would you hate against that?
Angel Reese has already made multiple comments implying that Clark is only successful because of media favoritism, ignoring the fact that Clark leads in every major financial and viewership metric.
And 45% of broadcast value came from Fever games. And the league's merchandise sales went up 500%, with Clark number 1, followed by Reese number 2.
Aja Wilson, one of the league's veteran stars, has also thrown subtle shade, dismissing Clark's impact and claiming that the media is obsessed with her. But here's the reality. Clark isn't getting attention because of media bias. She's getting it because she's the best thing to ever happen to the league.
Caitlyn didn't bring racism to the WNBA. This has been happening. And that, I think, is what's been such a shock for all of us, that other people are surprised by this. We've been trying to tell you. And once again, for so long, as a player, I would almost joke. I'd be like, I would have loved to have shut up and dribble. In so many ways, I would have loved to have been valued as a basketball player. I would have been loved to have been spoken about just for my play. I think everybody in the league can say that. But nobody ever let us do that.
The numbers tell the full story. Wilson, Reese, and other players can talk all they want, but none of them are bringing in fans like Clark is. None of them are selling out arenas at this rate. None of them are drawing millions of new viewers.
Her regular season games were watched by 1.2 million viewers on average, which is 199% more.
Clark's success isn't a fluke. It's proof that the WNBA was missing a true superstar all along. Now that they finally have one, some of the league's biggest names are more focused on tearing her down than celebrating the fact that the league is thriving because of her.
So there comes the female GOAT, and these women are going from having 3,000 people in their arenas to 20,000.
Instead of embracing Clark's impact, some players and media members are pushing narratives that ignore the reality of her contributions. They claim she's being overhyped.
Thank you so much for calling attention to our sport that literally no one cares about.
But if that were true, the WNBA wouldn't be seeing these record-breaking numbers. The jealousy and resentment are obvious, and they're only making Clark look even better in comparison.
But perhaps most astonishing is the economic impact on Indianapolis, which Brewer says is upwards of $36 million. This is one 22-year-old from Iowa.
Caitlyn Clark isn't just a great player. She's the most valuable asset the WNBA has ever had. Without her, the league wouldn't be seeing this level of attention, revenue, or excitement. She's bringing in new fans, elevating the sport, and proving that women's basketball can be a mainstream attraction. Look at what she's already accomplished in just her first year.
Caitlyn Clark has been the best thing, the most dominant thing. Remember, there's been good players come out of college, but nobody really cared. We'd seen it. Nobody really cared.
She's responsible for 26.5% of all WNBA activity, something no other player in history has even come close to. Her games are must-watch television, with some matchups drawing over 2 million viewers. Her influence is so massive that even the NBA is paying attention, with top analysts and players acknowledging that she's changing the game. And the best part? She's just getting started. Clark's rookie season is only the beginning. As she continues to dominate, her influence will only grow, forcing the WNBA to finally recognize that they've never had a player like her before. She's not just the president of the league, she's its future. The question now is whether the WNBA will embrace this reality or continue making the same mistakes by trying to suppress her success. The fans have already made their decision. They're watching Clark. They're buying her jerseys. They're filling arenas to see her. The league can either capitalize on this momentum or risk alienating the one player who is making them relevant. Caitlyn Clark is carrying the WNBA, whether her critics want to admit it or not. She's responsible for record-breaking viewership, sold-out arenas, and the highest merchandise sales in league history. And yet, some players and media figures are still trying to downplay her success. But the numbers don't lie. Clark is the reason the WNBA matters right now, and her impact is only going to grow. So what do you think? Is the jealousy from players like Aja Wilson justified? Or is Caitlyn Clark simply too dominant to ignore? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss an update on the biggest stories in women's basketball.